your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Today is going to be rather interesting because we are going to be talking with a woman who has written a book, a fascinating book, and it's related to her family. It's, I suppose you could call it a memoir. Her name is LorraineGibson Cohen. She's written a book called The Hipster's Legacy. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. It's really a pleasure. It'll probably take me back, maybe even before I was even born, but it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know that a lot of folks, they enjoy reminiscing, going back into what once was, and in the context of The Hipster's Legacy, a memoir of dreams, jazz, and family in 1960s California. Well, it's actually right around my time. I was born in 1960, but I was born in Arizona. So California, I've seen some pictures here in Santa Barbara of the way it used to look years gone by and how much it's changed. And I know Los Angeles, in more ways than one, of course, has changed. But that's kind of the nature of things. What was it that prompted you to have this urge to share your family's story?
Well, it's because back in the 60s, I was living with my sister, my older sister, her 3 young children, and my younger brother in a kind of funky cottage by the ocean in Hermosa Beach, California. And it occurred to me, well, we were all in our very early 20s, and we're all in the same boat of where do we go from here? So I thought that there were strange things that were happening to us, maybe because we were the children of a jazz musician, an entertainer, and we were all inspiring to be some sort of artist, whether I was an artist painting pictures, and my brother wanted to be a saxophone player like Charlie Parker, and my sister wanted to be a jazz singer. So, of course, her 3 little kids kind of confused the matter there. But we were all trying to be something or wondering where we were. And I, for one, didn't know what to do next. I was between doing things, school, boyfriends, and I had to sit down and where do I go from here? So in the meantime, I couldn't paint. It was a tiny little house, a funky little house that leaked. And so I started writing about what was happening, actually, sometimes right when it was happening. So all these stories were put in a gray loose leaf notebook. And when I moved to New York City, I brought it with me, and it's been with me from one apartment to another. And finally, there was a friend who just said, please write down your stories. And I said, oh, I do have a notebook. And I went back into it, and suddenly I was not writing a story, I was writing an entire book.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I just happened to find my mother's, and it's a more of a paperback, spiral bound little story of the genealogy more than anything else of her side of the family, but it included obviously my father's side too. And it was rather interesting to go back and just see the names, look at some of the pictures, talk to us about the photographs and some of the images that we are going to see in this beautiful book. I'm a photographer, and I find it fascinating, quite honestly, when I take a look at some old photographs, especially the ones that go back even further than the 1960s with
Yes,
the sepia tone colors,
yes, yes.
and so forth. And I don't know, there's just something about it. I didn't do well in college in photography class. I was legally blind at the time, but I loved photography. And my biggest problem was the whole issue of contrast in terms of developing. Talk to us a little bit about these photographs that we're going to see that show, in essence, a time that has gone by.
Well, first, I think I have to talk about the word hip and
Okay.
hipster, because today's hipster is not yesterday's hipster. Um, Hip started out with musicians, jazz musicians,
Hmm.
and first it was hip. That meant you were in the know, you knew about the new jazz. And then after a while, some people didn't, too many people were saying they were hip. So it was, hip. So it was changed to hip. And so it was not hip to be hep, so you were hip. That stuck. So my father was an up and coming musician, and instead of being Harry Ram from the Bronx, he changed his name to the Harry the Hipster Gibson, and his career took off with some hit records, a hit boogie woogie album,
Mm.
and he started being a lead person in the 52nd Street era, where there were all those nightclubs there. So, but so he was the influence. He raised us, and in the book, it's about his children, and yet there are throwbacks to what it was like to grow up with somebody like that for a father. So, but getting back to the pictures,
Hmm.
um, I do have this. This is the house we lived in Hermosa Beach. You
Mm.
did you say you were in Santa
I
Barbara?
I'm in Santa Barbara, yes.
That's a beach town, right?
Yes, indeed it is.
California. Okay, okay. And this was the back of it. I can't.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of my. Oops, I can't. This is a picture of my mother,
Ah,
and later.
very nice. Very
Um,
nice. Did you have trouble finding these photographs, or were they all pretty well
no,
preserved?
well, these just go back. Well, when my parents passed away, I inherited all their photographs.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
actually, here is a book that I just found. I Are you seeing it?
I am seeing it. Yes.
Okay. That I just found just like a couple of weeks ago, that somebody interviewed my father and then wrote this book.
Mm.
So you can see he's quite crazy. He had a very sort of wild and crazy show that he put on. So let's see other pictures. Um, well, this is me at the time.
Oh, wow.
Um, and let's see, this is a group that my brother played with.
Mm-hmm.
They played wild and crazy free-for-all jazz, which means there were no rules, no chord changes, no anything like that.
Wow. Yeah. I have a couple of albums like that, and the music just goes all over the place. And yet there's a cohesiveness to it, regardless of what that perceived chaos is that's going on musically.
Well, it certainly is spontaneous. And that's what
That is
brother,
true.
my brother was very into that.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Now, obviously, growing up in a musical family as you did, and I will tell you, I think that's fantastic that you found that book where your father was interviewed. I had the great pleasure 10 years ago of interviewing my parents. Now, my father has since passed. My mother is still alive. She'll be 91 this year as of our conversation. And so I have that to go back and listen to. I get to wonderfully hear the voices, but
Mm.
also hear the answers to the questions that I asked them. Have you had a chance to read that book yet? And of course, dive into a little bit more about who your father was? I mean,
Yes.
obviously you knew him, but how was that as you read his words, his quotes?
Well, there have been other things that interviews he's had. If you go on the YouTube and you put in Harry the Hipster Gibson, all these old soundies show up.
Hmm.
Soundies, I don't know if you know what soundies are, but there were jukeboxes, and someone got the idea of we could put little movies in jukeboxes, and when the music plays, you actually see the person doing that. And my father made a lot of those. So if anybody goes on YouTube,
Hmm.
there's a score of that. Very, very strange looking suits they wore back then. Um,
These weren't the Zoot suits that you're referring
oh,
to. Oh,
definitely.
they were. Okay.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes. And it's, oh, and then there was a little dancing involved in it. He made several of them.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're all on there. Um, I got some links. I don't understand about how links work, but and I could barely get onto this program because I was trying to get on the wrong link. But anyway, um,
Well, I've been doing this since 1994. I got into computers. I used to build them, and half of what's going on today, I don't understand. So you and I are in the same boat.
yes, it keeps changing. Now my sons, um, no problem. My one son,
Hmm.
who started on the computer at 4 years old,
Oh,
and it
wow.
wasn't even the kind we have now. It was just some lunky thing that didn't have any apple to it or whatever
Yeah.
thing, snazzy things that make us be able to write emails and things like that. But anyway, the book is just about all the funny things that happen to 20-year-olds who are living together for the first time and trying to be somebody. And
Mm.
there and then there are many flashbacks about what it's like to have a father that's in the entertainment business. I could read you a very short thing if we
That
have time for
I
that.
would love for you to do that. Before you do, though, I want to let our listeners know we are talking with Lorraine Gibson Cohen, and we're talking about this wonderful book. And folks, you have got to get a copy of this, if nothing more, for the photographs that are in this book. It's The Hipster's Legacy, a memoir of dreams, jazz, and family in the 1960s. California, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. We are talking with Lorraine Gibson Cohen, and you were going to share with us a little excerpt from the book. Please go ahead.
Okay, this is called Travels. Um, our so I'm talking about what it's like to live with a father who comes and goes, is gone for a long time, So our faraway travels, sometimes he wanted us to be with him. So our faraway travels always started in an all of a sudden way. My mother would get a long distance collect phone call. It was Harry. He would have a booking for an extended engagement somewhere, and he wanted us to be with him. Mom would drop everything and pack us up. Sometimes there was a dog to be shipped, and sometimes furniture. And within a few days, we would be off on a train or plane to San Francisco or Miami or New York City. Harry would be there at the station or airport port when we arrived at our destination and take us to our temporary home. So that would be happening. And that is, there are a
Mm,
lot of, but mostly it's sort of the story of his children, his family. We are his heritage,
mm.
just like you are the heritage of your family and who they were. And you don't think when you're in your 20s that it is who you are, but you do later realize it, that, well, you're interested in certain things. Oh, because your father took you to a baseball game, or your mother helped, let you cook with her. So, um, and I do hope that everyone will get it. And some people say that when they start reading the book, they really feel like they're living with us in the red house by the water.
Yeah. Now, I know that books that have a lot of pictures in them don't lend themselves well to an audible version where you have a narrator who reads the book because you're going to miss all the pictures. And you can't really describe them adequately. You have to see them for yourself because the description is obviously very subjective. I'm curious, though, is the book available in Audible? Is that something that they've contemplated?
Not right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's right in the making now. Um,
Ah.
it's coming up, and there are so many people who say, I can't really read very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is in the making. But really, this is the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's
That's
words. Those are words
yeah.
there. There are a lot of pictures. And a fun thing is the beginning in the back here,
Mm-hmm.
this picture was when I started writing when I was 22.
You started writing this book when you were 22?
Yes. And so 60 years later, I finished it. I didn't know it was a book until I started writing it. But so 60 years later, I finished it. And it was great fun to do it
Mm,
because I got to relive that entire time myself while I was
absolutely.
writing it.
And by the way, the website that you want to go to, you certainly can go to Amazon, but there is another website you can go to. It's called plumtreetales.com. That's plumtreetales.com. We'll be linked to that because it does take you to where the book is. And we encourage you to go there as you maybe listen to or watch the interview that we are conducting here on YouTube, as well as available on SoundCloud and iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. We hope that you'll take advantage of that. And I wanted to ask you, because you come from a musical family, this question spurs from a question that I asked my parents. What is it? I mean, we don't have to ask you whether, what was it like coming from a musical family? My question is more for you personally. What is it about music that you love so much? And obviously the input of your parents. I mean, my parents, they intentionally introduced us to
Ah,
all different kinds of music. And my father certainly had his favorites like Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash and so forth, Hootenanny, and they loved listening to the what we consider now some of the classic music from the 50s and 60s. What are some of your favorites, and what is it about music in general that you love so much, that gives you life?
well, I have to say that, like you, we had music constantly in our house. My father even had a recording apparatus where we could sing and make up our own songs. So there was constantly music all the time, and mostly it was jazz. We had a
Mm-hmm.
piano in our living room, and when my father came home, he was an entertainer. He never stopped entertaining. So he would sing with us and play songs, and all of that, of course, is in the book. But music, I've often wondered about it too. You remember the melody more than the words. Isn't that true?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I went to a movie. My sister took me, she loved the movies, took me to a movie, Little Women, 1950. And I loved the movie. She loved the movie. Well, years and years later, my daughter took me to the new Little Women. And as soon as I saw the movie, we walked out, and a tune went into my head. And I said, that isn't the tune that was in the movie I just saw. It was melody, the theme from the original one that I saw with my sister one time when I was 8 years old. So,
Mm-hmm.
mm, so music is, I don't know, it's the craziest thing. It's
Mm.
not like any other thing.
Yeah.
And it's so nebulous. It's a vibration,
Yeah.
but it
I
gets
know that.
us jumping around.
Yeah.
That's for
And
sure.
I know that at the awards ceremonies that I've watched over the years, film awards, when the people who had won an award for the sound editing and so forth and sound effects would get up there. And the music applies to this too. And what this person said, they said that the movies would not be what they are if it weren't for the work that we do, whether it be sound effects and or the music. I mean,
Definitely.
you know,
Oh, yes.
I mean, you think of some of the big films like Jaws, and immediately da 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 da, and then of course Star Wars da 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 da, and it's
About Psycho.
yes, exactly. Or even the Twilight Zone, the when even the television
We all
programs, the
know
same thing.
that. Yes.
Absolutely. To me, it's all very fascinating. We're talking with Lorraine Gibson Cohen, and we're talking about the hipster's legacy, and we are going to continue doing so as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it's a real pleasure to have with us Lorraine Gibson Cohen with us to talk about, well, in essence, her life and so forth. Now, there are those, Lorraine, who will put music in the context of a spiritual experience. I mean, you use the word vibration, and so forth, and that different songs will hit us in different ways, and so forth. So I'm curious about your. I'll put it in this context: your spiritual upbringing. I refer to them as philosophies more than anything else. Where did you start in life as a child in that regard, and where are you today? That progression.
Well, oh, spiritualism or being spiritual. Uh, I think it's through play.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, we had a bigger family. Kids back when I grew up were very free, free to run out on the block, play with the kids on the block, go away, go hike in the mountains alone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a kind of a group, like my older brother, my younger brother, my older sister, you're sort of, I guess, protected by them. But I think because people had more children, they let us be more free. And so there was a spirit of we made our own play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm still playing today. And everything I do is sort of like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to do that?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be fun to make a movie with our little Super 8 camera? We'll make The Wizard of Oz. And my children, we would dress them up in outfits and skip them down the yellow brick road. And I mean, it was all just play.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what my philosophy is. And I think there's too much homework going on nowadays. And parents are too focused on making their kids smart. I
Yeah.
mean, my kids were already smart,
Hmm.
but I living in the city was not like the way I lived. So I was trying to teach my children to play and to make up things. And my son at 12 years old did his own version of the quality of being, what was that name of that? The quality of being earnest, the importance of being
Hmm.
earnest.
Hmm.
And he made up the importance of Subway sandwiches. Did a kind of Victorian play for his father on his birthday. It's
Oh,
that sort of life that I wanted, a sort of creative, but very stable. I didn't have quite the stable life, but I love the magic of it. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to bring to my own life and my children's life.
It sounds an awful lot. Reminds me of the television series The Goldbergs, where the youngest boy was had a camera in his hand most of the time, and maybe tried to redo Star Wars or some other film that he really liked. He was really into that genre.
I miss the
And
show, I guess.
there was a great public service announcement. It's going back maybe 40 or 50 years that I saw, and maybe not that far back, and it's probably around somewhere, and it starts out where it's got children playing. This in this case, the way they did divide it up in by gender. So here are the boys; they're playing in the dirt with their Tonka trucks and doing this and that and the other. And then it cuts to adults wearing hard hats on a construction site building a building. Now we
Uh-huh.
go back to children, and this time it's girls, and they're playing maybe with their dolls, doing maybe the nursing kind of thing, and then cuts to the adult females in a hospital in the ER, just going to town trying to save a
Yeah.
life and so forth. And what that public service announcement really said to me, and you kind of touched upon that, is if we really want to have some happiness in our lives, and this is where I'm going with this, we
Mhm.
need to take a look at our childhood. What were the things that gave us pleasure? We didn't get paid for them because we just loved doing them. And by the way, my father being he also fixed appliances, and he had a reel to reel that he let me use and had some tapes and a microphone, and there was a little portable turntable with records and what have you, and and on and on and on. And I used to make these tapes of radio shows that I was doing of music as a kid. Now I played in the dirt too. I dug tunnels and stuff to my father's consternation in the backyard, and we built forts out of old pieces of wood. And
Yes,
here I
yes.
am today. What do you think about that particular theory that if you really want to be happy and you want to find your life's purpose, dip into the memories of your childhood and you're going to find that.
Yes, I was 6 years old when I decided I wanted to be an artist because I saw a drawing. Actually, it was sort of a chalk drawing on a wall of
Hmm.
a figure, and just using one line, and I could see that was a figure using one line.
Mm,
And that fascinated me, and I wanted to be able to draw. So from then on, I drew everything I could
mm.
um, because I thought there was something magical about drawing. And like I wanted to live on a farm, so I would draw myself on a farm, riding a horse with the cows in the back. What I didn't have, I would draw. So it's play. It's using your imagination.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of afraid the kids now are sort of stuck on their phones. How
Their
do,
devices, yeah, their screens.
yeah, and it's all being done for them. Um, I know there's great pleasure that I had inventing my own toys out of cardboard boxes and putting on shows in the backyard and a circus in the backyard. My brother turned a garage into a gambling casino,
Mm,
made a lot of money too. So it's a play.
yeah.
Uh, That's where,
Yeah.
and I guess I started out plain just writing this book, and it turned into something very serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting. You say you officially started writing the book at the age of 22. Now I'm guessing that's what, some 40 or 50 years ago,
60.
60 years ago. Okay. I'm not going to ask how old you are. Okay. That'd
Well,
be.
if you can do the math.
um, and actually, I feel now like I'm in good company because my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, I published last September. The impetus for it was in 2001. And it wasn't until maybe 2006 or seven that I decided, I should write a book about this. And it's taken me that long.
Mm.
One of the things that I have learned, and maybe this is one of the things that you could share with us too, is I finally let go of deadlines up until last June when I decided, now I feel is the time. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It's kind of like I said to my brother. We were having this conversation out in the desert. There was a family reunion in between Florence and Coolidge, Arizona, and we decided to go for a little walk. And I was sharing with him where I was coming from philosophically and all of these things. And he turns to me and says, "Well, geez, Richard, it's about time you got it." And I said to him, "It isn't when you get it, it's that you get it." And in the case of a book, it isn't when it's released, it's that it's released. And there's always, as I like to refer to it, divine right timing. Did you look at it that way with your book? I mean, was there a point along the way you said, I need to finish this somehow?
No, because once I started writing, I couldn't stop.
Right.
Actually, I had a few people that were ready to read the next chapter. So I almost felt like a Dickens, you know. My audience was waiting for my next chapter. And I'm kind of someone that likes to fulfill other people's wishes in a way. So that's really spurred me on.
Hmm.
And I had a special friend who was encouraged me to start writing in the first place. And she was the first one I would give it to.
Mm.
So that kept me going. And uh, writing wasn't the problem. This whole publishing online
Yeah.
was a total surprise for me. I'm lost in another language. I felt like it was in a different country where I didn't understand the language. And I was all alone with no one to help me but AI over here, who seemed so stupid. It would say, "Can I help you?" And I would say, "Yes, I can't do this." And so it would give three things back. Well, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Oh, I told you what it was.
Yeah.
So that was no help at all.
Ah. Well, I'm just learning about AI. I had a guest on not long ago talking about using AI to write a book. And the one thing he said, which was to me very profound, was if you're going to write a book and you're going to use AI, keep in mind that the book that AI pumps out, based upon the information you've given it, is your first draft. It is not the final book. You have to remember that. And then you put yourself into that first draft and you go through and you look it over and you read it and you edit it and you change this and you change that. And
Mm.
so it's I guess the best way I can put it from an artist perspective is AI pumps out a lump of clay. You didn't have any clay to start with. Now you have this lump of clay, and now you have to mold it. So it actually does become your book. It is not a book authored by AI, even though there are those who would tell you otherwise. And based upon this gentleman's explanation, I liked that. And I said, okay, I will give it a try because I have several books in my head that I want to put out as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But boy, I'd be interested in learning more about your experiences with AI, maybe at another time. But he says it's a tool. just like a hammer is to a construction worker, or in my case, a microphone is to an interviewer, on a podcast and so forth. It's just a tool. And I think that some have given it a lot more weight than maybe it deserves, or in your experiences, than it really
Well,
is entitled to.
my husband agrees with you. He keeps saying it's just a tool.
Yeah.
Why are people saying it's this crazy, weird thing? It's
Yeah.
just another tool, like a pencil or a
Yeah.
typewriter or a computer. But I don't care for my youngest son, the computer whiz.
Yeah.
Um, I told him I was writing a book. He said, "Send me a chapter, and I'll set it up with an AI."
Hmm.
So he did that, and I specifically told the AI just correct my grammar, my spelling.
Yeah.
And what did it do? It took over and wrote a whole new chapter. Actually, did that freak me out.
Well, I sent my book to my sister, who proofread it. I had a section in there, a sentence that had a list of things. And of course, in English, I learned that when you have a list of items, two or more, it's item one, comma, two, comma, three, comma, four, comma, and five, period. My manuscript comes back and she took all the commas out and put in ands. And I'm going, what? What are you doing? And I almost called her and said, no, that's not right. And I thought, I better do a little research. Now she's proofread stuff. It turns out that both ways are correct grammatically. And
Yes, it could do it. It could give a lot of emphasis
yeah,
and in a
exactly. It
citing sentence.
Yeah, it sounds a little redundant if it's in an audible, if you're reading it, that kind of thing. But you're right. I think that it does add emphasis. And it's fascinating, just the process itself. Now, this was your first book written, is that correct?
Well, I've written a lot of short stories, but
Okay.
this is the first book since it turned into a
A
novel.
novel.
It really does read like a novel.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I better publish it. But I've got a drawer full of a lot of short stories, but I'm just busy doing all sorts of things. So
Yeah.
I never tried to publish them or send them to, contests or anything like that. Just
Now,
didn't occur to me.
I'm sorry, say again.
It didn't occur to me. But I
Now, what
said,
about
gee,
your
yeah.
education in regards to writing? Did you have any up to the point of, when you were 22, or did you get educated in terms of how to write this book, or was it, I just have to get this out onto the paper?
Well, I'm trained to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I paint a picture, the way the composition, light, darkness, color, I just thought I could transfer it over. Is a lot of description in
Mm-hmm.
that book because I love looking at things.
Yeah.
So I transferred, I think if you're good at one thing,
Mm-hmm.
you can be good at other things in the same way.
Yeah.
And being an artist, I think transferred it. And it
So,
was, of course, I had to read only very good writers too. That was an awful good help.
yeah. So you're an artist, you are an author, but you you make the implication, but it's more than that. You're also in the category of a storyteller, because it's not just the total story, the memoir, the hipster's legacy, but it's all of the little stories that make up the hipster's legacy.
Yes, exactly. So you got it perfect. And I love that your show is called Tell Me Your Story. I live in New York. I walk out on the street and there are stories everywhere. Some are long, some are short, but just walking around, everybody's out there. And you see someone, you know, lugging a full-size lamp on their shoulder. Like they just bought it at the good stores
Hmm.
and they're hauling it home. Or, people are pushing carriages and strollers with
Yeah.
little kids and they're going to the park. In the winter, they're dragging their kids in sleds going to Central Park. It's just, when I first got to New York, I ended up at 107th Street and I started walking downtown and I saw about 20 different stories happening all over the place. The most exciting thing I ever had
Mm,
happen is to come to New York City.
yeah. I've been there once. It was a long time ago with my first wife, 1993. And it was Earth Day, though I wasn't aware of it at the time. And we walked from, I believe it was Penn Station up Fifth Avenue all the way to Central Park.
That's a
And
great.
yeah, do you remember in the television series The Odd Couple, that fountain in the I think it was in the opening. We made it to that fountain, and then we looked off to the west in the park, and we saw this huge crowd of people coming our way. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know it was Earth Day. And we thought, you know what? We might want to get out of this park or we're all going to get lost from one another. And it would have made it worse because my wife at that time, my first wife, was totally blind. So we did not want that to happen. But that was an experience. And I believe there was a television show, had a great line similar to what you just said. And I think it was Dragnet that opened with
No,
the
no,
line, there are a
it was,
million stories in the naked city, and this is one of them.
yes, I think it was called The Naked City.
Yeah, maybe that was what it was called. Yeah,
Right, yes,
yeah,
that's another sound that you remember. Dun, 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 dun.
yeah,
You can't forget that.
yeah,
So, yes, I was thinking of that the other day too. That
yeah,
show called A Thousand, or what was it then? Now we're like 8 million here.
yeah.
I think
Oh
they
my
said a
heavens!
million. Yeah, now we're 8
Wow.
million, many more stories. And I think I was there on that Earth Day in the park. We might have walked past each other.
It's entirely possible.
Were you talking about the fountain in the park?
In the park.
Bethesda Fountain.
Yeah,
It's Angel.
yeah,
Oh, that's a great place.
yeah,
That everything. That's where everybody was.
yeah. Well, Tony Randall and Jack Klugman did a little shtick there in front of it for the opening, and I think they'd used it in the closing too. Um, But you reminded me too. I have a friend here in Santa Barbara. He actually lives up on the mountain above Santa Barbara here in the same area that I do. And he is the spitting image, presence, tone of voice as Joe Friday from Dragnet. That
Oh,
give the facts, just the facts. He's
what
that kind of yeah, he's that kind of guy.
name?
It's
Oh,
amazing.
I
We're
forgot.
talking with Lorraine Gibson Cohen. We're talking about The Hipster's Legacy. We hope you'll get a copy. We are going to tell you one more. Well, we'll tell you more than once, but I'll tell you right now. Go to Amazon.com, but also go to plumtreetales.com. We'll be linked to that website as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host here on Tell Me Your Story. We are talking with Lorraine Gibson Cohen, and we're talking about a work that that has been 60 years in the. Can you imagine, folks? 60 years in the making, and we are so glad that she is sharing the story of the hipster's legacy, a memoir of dreams, jazz, and family in the 60s. In 60s California. I mean, I could probably put together some photographs and then remember the stories of pictures that I was taking with one of those little Instamatic 126 Instamatic cameras that I had. Maybe it was in the late 60s, early 70s. And then I got my father's Argus 35 millimeter camera, and I was taking pictures of Central Avenue in Phoenix and all of the different areas and the mountains and going hiking and this and that and the other. And then a digital camera that my second wife and I'm still with her, by the way, I took with me it was also my father's digital camera that I took to Ireland. And then the second trip to Ireland, I actually bought a number of those disposable cameras. And believe it or not, Lorraine, those disposable cameras actually took better pictures than the digital camera did. Um,
I remember using them myself.
yeah.
Yes, fine.
And and that these, and I would venture that you, because this is one of the books I'm thinking about. I have so many photographs. I have this wooden box. It's probably about a foot and a half long, and it is or wide, if you will, and it's maybe 6 or 8 inches square, and it has the hinges and a big clasp on it, and it's rather thick. The wood itself is probably about, I don't know, maybe a quarter inch, maybe a half inch thick, and inside of it are all of these photographs that I have taken over the years in my 20s, teens, 20s, and probably into the 30s, and obviously then the Irish pictures. And it's like, okay, I now have to find a scanner to scan all of these in so that I can
Yes,
then create this picture book. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be it could be 2 or 3 volumes, because every time I put a picture in there, I'm probably going to want to tell some story about that picture or series of photographs.
yes. Remember scanning all the old pictures into the scanner. And and by the way, would you like to see some illustrations from the book?
Sure, absolutely.
I am an artist.
Now, folks, please understand, if you're listening to the radio broadcast or the podcast, you're not going to be able to see them really well. So you're going to need to go to YouTube and pick up this interview with Lorraine so that you can see these drawings, these sketches, and so forth. Which, by the way, I did the same thing in my book. I put drawings that I had done into my book. So, and I just thought it'd be kind of cool to do. Let's take a look at what she has here, and we'll try to
Well,
give the best description we can.
uh, this is my sister. I don't know. Can you see it? Because I
Yes,
don't
I
see.
see it. Hmm.
Okay. This is how we used to go to the laundromat and do our laundry. And with 3 kids and 3 adults in their 20s, that's how much laundry we would have. We had
Wow.
no washing machine. So we put it in a funny old wagon
Hmm.
and go down the street.
Now, wait a
Um,
minute, wait a minute. You went to a laundromat. You didn't go to the local rock by the stream, did you?
no, that would have been the Pacific Ocean, a little too
Okay.
hard. Um, This is a picture of one of our friends that actually gave, she was a little older, she was in her 30s. So she's the one that gave me many books, good books to
Hmm.
read. Um, this is a picture of my sister.
Ah.
When she got upset, would curl up in this chair and smoke furiously.
Oh, that
Um,
that was her moping chair.
yes, yes.
And by
And
the way, you drew these.
yes.
They are beautiful. You are a very talented artist in that respect.
Well, I usually draw things that I see, but
Hmm.
this is what I have to recreate from whatever happened, the story I was writing. I
Yeah.
would have to do that. So I'm a little out of my element here, actually.
Well,
Um,
not that far.
you have time for another one?
Yes, sure.
Okay. As I say, we were musicians. So they were recording something, and my sister couldn't hear herself sing. So she put this trash can over her head so she can hear herself. Well, and so my brother did it too.
Oh,
So this sort of gives you an idea of the sort of wacky way they were living.
oh my.
All very creative.
Oh, very much so, very much so, and very uninhibited in that regard. They didn't, there was no shame in putting a garbage can over your head because you were doing it for a purpose and it was
Yes.
okay to do. And yet today there are a lot of us. I mean, I love to sing and I love to I have a single earbud in my ear because I want to be able to hear what's going on in the outside world at the same time, just in case maybe there's an ambulance or whatever, somebody yells out to me or what have you. and I like to sing along with those. And
Oh,
of course, in most cities, especially, I'm sure they're in New York, you have people walking around with no earbud in, and they're singing and carrying on. But, we might say they're not quite right in the head. Okay, we could say that. And I guess I get a little concerned that maybe they might think of me in the same fashion. And I'm a little crazy too, but it's just a
oh.
wonderful thing to sing.
It seems like now everybody is talking to themselves. When I first got here, if somebody was behind me talking very loud, I would say, well, think they might be a little crazy. I'll move
Yeah.
away. But now everybody is talking on the phone. You can't even see the phone.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like everyone's doing, there's no way of knowing who's a little off or
And
not.
yeah, exactly. I know. I get that way sometimes. I get a phone call during the music and I'll be talking to them as I'm walking down the street. So I'm sure that it looks a little odd to some folks as well.
Oh, it wouldn't be odd if you came to New York City. Oh, people sing too
Hmm.
because they've got the music in their ears,
Right,
and
right.
they
I, and you
tell it
still have
so
musicians on certain
well.
street corners too, right?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
and whenever I see someone playing an alto saxophone, I have to give them money because I know they're a struggling musician.
Hmm.
And in fact, on Sundays, it's quite wonderful. And especially in the spring and summer, there are all sorts of musicians and puppeteers and different people doing their thing in Central Park without any having to have any license or anything. And just the other day, my husband and I heard this great jazz band right in Central Park,
Mm.
right where we live.
Oh, very cool.
I
Very
mean, you
cool
don't
indeed.
I think in New York City, you don't have to plan to do anything. Yes, we have wonderful museums and everything, but you walk out the door and you run into some marching band. Uh, that you never, there are just so many things happening that
Hmm.
you don't even have to plan to go to any big ones. In fact, don't go to the big ones. Crowd is too big. Just
Yeah.
sort of do a serendipity and
Mm.
you'll bump into many things, especially a Sunday in New York City in Central Park. You
That
want to
must
come?
be that
Are you
must be
ready to come?
Hey, my wife wants to visit. She wants to, I mean, I certainly would love to see Central Park again, and walk Fifth Avenue and so forth. Would love, she wants to go shopping and so forth, even if it's just window shopping. I remember in 93 when we were there, we were walking with my best friend, my wife and I, my wife on my arm, and I was looking up, at the skyscrapers, and he says, knock it off. I
No,
said,
don't
why? He
look
says,
up.
because you look like a tourist. And I said, I am a tourist.
Well, if you're a young female, it can get you into trouble.
I bet.
That's what I did when I first came to New York. Like, duh. Um,
And what is the cathedral there on Fifth Avenue? Is that
at St. Patrick's
St.
Cathedral.
Patrick's? I think that particular day we wanted to go in. I don't think that they had it open on that particular day, but that's one of the sad facts that I find going back in my past, here in Phoenix, or back in Phoenix where I lived, that the churches were never locked. You were allowed to go in if you wanted to and kneel and pray and so forth and so
Mhm.
on. And nowadays it's like, well, yeah, I better do that at home because the church is going to be locked up tight, and
Yeah.
so forth and so on. And you described growing up. It's one of the things that I cherish more than anything else is my ability, just as you described, running around the block. There were no gangs. We were a gang of sorts, but all of the neighbors knew who we were. We would run up and down the alleys between the rows of houses, bicycling everywhere, even going a little further than we were supposed to. And my mother
Very
came
nice
home one
story.
day having seen me several miles from home, and I was young at the time, and asked me what was I doing all the way out there. And it's like, well, we were just riding. It wasn't a big deal. And of course, as years went on, I was traveling all over that city, and I was going mile after mile after out to, I don't know if you know the breakdown of Phoenix metro area. There's
I live
Scottsdale to
in
the east,
Phoenix.
there's Glendale to the west, there's Deer Valley to the north, and there's Tempe and Mesa and so forth. As a matter of fact,
Scottsdale?
and Scottsdale, yep. And my first wife and I actually, we had a tandem, a bicycle built for two that we would get around on. And we actually participated in a 60-mile ride one Saturday, I think it was. And it was for us even more because in order to get to the starting point, we had to bicycle to it because, well, we didn't have a car because I was legally blind and she was totally blind. And so in addition to the 60, we had to drive another 10. So when we were done with the ride, we had to drive that same 10. So actually, I think we did 80 miles that particular day. But I got to tell you, there's nothing like being out on the road on a bicycle, and doing it safely, of course, and just it's just nothing like it. And I love walking too. Absolutely. I
Yes,
love getting out and walking around. And I
yes.
know that in New York City, sure, you can get out and walk, but if you're crossing a street, you better be careful.
Oh, you better watch out. But we have a new law now. They said
Uh-oh.
jaywalking is all right.
We have that here.
But nobody ever said you're walking against the light. You
Yeah,
walk against the light if no cars are coming. Everyone does that.
yeah,
And but when I would go back to California to visit, and I would do that, I would be stopped.
yeah.
And and I would say, "Oh, I'm new here. I don't know the rules." But
Oh,
yes,
it's and I think that's what this book is going to help a lot of folks to take a look back at the work, the life that they lived. And again, we hope that you'll get a copy of her book. It's fascinating. Again, it's a hipster's legacy, and we are going to tell you one more time here that it is. You can get it at Amazon.com certainly, but you can also go to plumtreetales.com, and Lorraine Gibson Cohen is my guest, and you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. Lorraine, I have one final question to ask you in terms of the book and the work and your life. Looking back on this memoir and looking back on all of the memories that obviously came flooding back to you as you would then put them down on paper as quickly as you could. Can you tell us if there is one particular memory that you have that you cherish above all others?
well, there was one chapter in the book all about Christmas,
Mm,
and in the chapter, I go back to the Christmases I had with my mother and father and my brothers and sisters, and what it was like then getting the bikes and all of that,
yeah.
getting getting the little it went out of my head, the little house.
Hmm.
Anyway, the play not the playhouse. Oh, okay.
Was it?
I'm 80, so something just dropped right out of my head. And then there was what the Christmas was then. And when you're poor, and we were very poor at that time, we had to sort of make a lot of the toys. And my sister was wonderful at bringing magic in and
Mm,
making Christmas a wonderful time. So I particularly like that chapter about
yeah.
Christmas.
I have a sister like that. One of her favorite things to do, she would have the gift and she would wrap it and put it in a box and wrap it and
And
then
put
put
it
that in
in
a
a
box
box.
and like the Russian tea dolls
That's
or
the Russian dolls.
the Russian dolls. And it was like you'd start with the big, huge box under the Christmas tree. Oh, wow, this is going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's like another box and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we always loved what she gave us. But it was the journey that was actually the most fun. It was really great. And the converse of that, what would you say is one of the most challenging memories to that came up for you?
Write about.
to
Well,
write about?
I had no intention of writing about myself. I was going to write all the funny things that happened to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was exposing my family, telling about their quirks and who they were. I was exposing them, and I said, I have to expose myself. And I
Mm.
didn't want to, but I kind of felt like I had to. So at that time, I was going through a broken heart. So that was what I put in this book. That
Mm.
during this whole time when my brothers and sister and I were figuring out who we were, I had this broken heart. And
Mm.
I had to recreate the breakup scene with my boyfriend. So that was very hard to write. Had to do that several times. But in a way, it was very freeing.
Yeah.
I was really amazed that when you write about things that hurt, it helps.
Yeah.
Or it was a very amazing at the end of the book. I thought I was going to write about everybody else, but I told myself who I was.
Mm. Yeah. A memory floods back of, I guess I could call her my girlfriend. She was a friend and she was a girl. She was one of the waitresses at the local Pizza Hut there in Phoenix.
Oh,
And that's where I met her. And when it all fell apart, I spent an evening, and I was bicycling everywhere, mind you, and still living with my parents. I went to that Pizza Hut. She was not working at the time. And I consumed all by myself an entire pitcher of beer and then bicycled home. Now, I was of age at the time, and bicycled home. I was amazed that I didn't get pulled over by anybody, but then again, it was around midnight or so as I was bicycling home, and that was hard. That was rough. Um, but what a beautiful gal she was. I wonder where Linda Shamer is today. Uh,
I
you
wonder
know,
where he was
yeah,
today.
exactly.
Today.
And what would my life be? Would I be living here in Santa Barbara, talking with you today if she and I had made it work and the family, because her family basically, I was sitting, I would get rides from my sister, and I was inside their house, her family's house. We were chatting a little bit before I was going to leave. All of a sudden, my sister honked the horn. And they said, "Oh my goodness, she's going to wake up my husband, her mother's father." And I tried to make a joke, and it went over like a lead balloon. And that was pretty, I don't know why, but that was pretty much the end of that relationship. Um, yeah. So, you just never know how things are going to go. And I'm happy with the way my life has turned out. And we all do
Yes.
this. I mean, you did this time and time and time again.
I wouldn't have come to New York if it
Yeah,
had worked out, definitely.
yeah. Well,
I
this
might
is,
have turned into something else there.
yeah.
Worked in Hollywood, splicing, being an editor, splicing film together. Love to do that.
Oh, oh, wonderful. So have you made films, many films?
Well, little Super 8, remember the silent
Ah,
Super 8 film?
yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. So I really enjoyed sitting up at night into the night, getting that right, perfect second,
Yeah,
hitting it
yeah,
just right. And I know I would have been good at that. So
yeah,
life not lived,
yeah.
but very happy with this one, by the way.
Well, I'll tell you, I relate because I loved kneeling before the reel to reel. It was one that sat horizontally in a rack that rolled and splicing, and I loved that.
Yes,
I
that's what
loved,
I had.
yeah.
That's what I had with glue, right?
No, we didn't use glue on the
Oh,
audio tape. It was splicing tape that we used. It was the
oh,
same
oh.
width as the tape itself, and you'd have to find just the right spot over the playhead, and then you'd have to mark it with a white china marker, and then pull it
Mhm.
out, put it into the splicing block, and put that white china mark right in the diagonal cut slot, and then take your razor blade and cut it, and then cut out the other half, and I would never throw the stuff into the garbage right away. I would put it up on top of the amp, if you will, where the meters for the reel-to-reel were, just in case I needed to put it back.
Back
Because,
in.
oh, I didn't splice it quite right. So I'm going to put it back in there and I'm going to find the right place to splice it and so on and so forth. I loved that is part of what I kind of miss. And I still have all of those elements. I have boxes of reel to reels, a splicing block, China marker, and obviously razor blades. And I certainly could go through and start doing that all again. It was great fun. This is great fun chatting with you here on
Since
Tell Me Your
then,
Story. I'm Richard Dugan. Lorraine Gibson Cohen has been my guest. And Lorraine, I can't thank you enough. This has been a real pleasure. And thank you for giving us so much time.
oh, thank you for giving me the time.
I'll be honest with our listeners. I was instructed to talk with you for 30 minutes. And when I mentioned that to you, you said, hey, I'm yours for however long you want me until we both pass out. So thank you so much for giving us this hour plus. This has just been wonderful.
Yes, I enjoyed it very much.
I do have three final questions that I ask all of my guests. Before I ask those, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. following the news, streaming live at richarddugan.com. We're also podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. And we're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. And if you have been listening and we've been popping up these different images throughout the program, you're going to want to go to YouTube to see those images. Or better yet, get yourself a copy of Lorraine's book. And we also want to remind you that Choices 5 Steps for Life is available at Amazon.com. All you have to do is go there and put in Choices 5 Steps for Life. A hard copy, paperback, and Kindle are available. And we also ask that if you can support the work that we're doing, if you'd like to leave us a tip, we have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And I thank you to those who have helped and to those who are going to help down the road. And finally, we ask that you take time during this, the decade of perfect vision, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. There is no AI there, I guarantee you. And with all of that being said, we go to our final three questions for our very special guest. And again, my thanks to her giving us so much time. The first of those three questions is, who is Lorraine Gibson Cohen?
Oh, why would you ask me that? Uh, I'm me. That's I'm just me. I'm not, I'm sort of a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
but I think when I was a child, I could play alone and I had a sense of myself then.
Mm-hmm.
When you're alone, you can be alone, you can be with people, but when you're alone, you find out who you are. And I'm climbing up the tree and I'm playing in the vacant lot. So I always had a sense of me.
Mm. What gets you up in the morning?
Coffee. Knowing I'm going to have that wonderful coffee and I make it as good as possible and I put extra thick cream in it and I enjoy it. But that's just one time I drink it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I need.
Yeah. And finally, speaking of nostalgia, you might recognize this question. What was your best day?
I just remember beautiful days.
Mm.
Um, some things are just so beautiful. I'm an artist, so I'm visual. I was in Central Park, and it was a late spring, and there were all these cherry blossoms, in a long row on this path. And there were so many cherry blossoms, they started falling off the trees like snow. It just was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Except maybe in the fall when the leaves fall down. But I've just seen, when you see something beautiful, a child, that's the best day. A new baby.
Well, thank you once again. I would send that back to you and say you are beautiful, and thank you so much for this beautiful work that you have put out.
Thank you.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thank you so much for being in my life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.